Thanks for tuning in to Know Better, Live Best. I am your host, Kari Ginger. Today's guest is a certified sports nutritionist and USA weightlifting sports performance coach. His degree is in movement and exercise science with a master's in exercise and nutritional science. He has worked with multiple professional sports teams and athletes in the NHL, NFL, MLB, and UFC. He is Coach Chase Hollmer. I had a great conversation with Chase about athletes of all ages, nutrition, listening to your body, and a bit about Quad City Athlete Academy, where you will find him training all levels of athletes. Know Better, Live Best is dedicated to supporting food and health literacy in people of all ages. Our mission is to cut through the misinformation surrounding food, health, and nutrition because we believe that when people know better, they can make the right choices and live their best lives. We are presented by Bytable Foods. They use blockchain and Internet of Things technology to build traceable, transparent food systems because it shouldn't take an investigative journalist to find out where food comes from. So I am pretty pumped to be here at Quad City Athlete Academy, speaking with a certified sports nutritionist and USA weightlifting sports performance coach and certified strength and conditioning coach, Chase Hollmer. I was hoping I'd get all those in there because I knew I would kind of forget.
Yes.
So this place is pretty cool.
Yeah.
You have the doors open, you can be outside. When I pulled up, there was like guys out there with their dumbbells and their kettlebells. And I'm like, this is pretty intense.
Yeah, so
Not
it's
for me yet.
It's pretty cool, but as hot as it gets in the summer, it definitely gets pretty cold in the winter sometimes. But we go old school Rocky with sweatpants, sweatshirt on. But
right,
it is it's a fun facility, and we always have a blast down here. So
it does kind of remind me of Rocky.
Yeah,
a little bit now that you say that. Yep. So we were talking earlier. You have quite the credentials.
Yeah.
Tell us about how you kind of got here.
So I think it was like every other kid growing up. I wrestled at 125 pounds my senior year of high school, and going into college, I was like, you know what? I just don't really want to weigh 125 pounds anymore. So I had an older brother that was super into working out, and so I really got into that in college, and then it was just something I was very passionate. I loved it, so I decided to go down to the University of Tampa and got my master's in exercise and nutrition science. And then also was fortunate enough to be studying one of the top research labs in the nation down there, studying various exercise, nutrition, supplementation protocols. So that kind of was the gateway to, me being able to do all these cool things and all these awesome opportunities. That kind of got me started on my road to where I am now.
So anything happened along the road that kind of changed your philosophy? Any of the teachings?
So honestly, I only cared about, for the longest time, I was like, I'm super interested in how you can get stronger, how you can get just bigger, put on muscle, and get as lean as possible. More of the aesthetics, how you look. And I started coaching youth athletics, and that's kind of where my philosophy kind of changed. And it was okay, I care more about performance. I care more about long-term health. I want to do this forever. It's not I just want to look good in my 20s. It's I want to perform well. I want to, be able to go play a rec soccer game, or I want to be able to go, when I have kids, play sports with my kids. It was more so I care more about being able to live a healthy life and fun life as opposed to just looking good. That's kind of where my philosophy changed. And that kind of came with working with athletes when I was in grad school.
Okay. So these athletes you were working with, what's your favorite? What really gets you pumped when they walk in?
So honestly, I think most people are crazy. I've been fortunate enough to work with NFL, MLB, some UFC guys, some top level wrestlers, and, professional athletes of every level. But honestly, I think it's got to be the middle school and high school kids, just because they're just so fun. It's something different every day, and it's cool to see kids that, I had a kid that when I first started, it was almost like he was a baby deer. I thought he was going to trip over his feet when he started, and, now he's in high school, and he's this big, bad high school athlete, and you're okay, this is pretty cool to see the, growth from this, little, 4-foot middle schooler to, now this 6-foot athlete, who's going to be doing big things at the high school level. So that's definitely high school, middle school has come to be my favorite, even though I've been able to work with those high-level athletes.
Well, I feel like boys, I'm saying boys when they're younger, they really be patient, because I think like you see these boys walk into high school and they're, like you said, 125 pounds, maybe less than you see them in college or after, and they're just like, you sometimes don't even recognize them.
Yeah, so it's like crazy. Like even now, like I use an example. I'll have like 3 kids, and I might have one kid that's an absolute beast when he starts out. He starts and he can knock out 5 pull-ups like it's nothing, and then I have this other kid, and he can't even hold on to the bar, and then it's like you have this kid that started off at so just raw, doesn't have like any really ability in the weight room or on the field, and you just see him grow and mature, and it he might end up passing that kid just because he wasn't maturing at the same rate that this other kid was maturing. So that's really cool to see when that happens.
Well, it is amazing. I have 4 brothers. I know you know at least one of them really well, the Diesel. But we laugh a ton when we see pictures, like pre-high school, going into high school, and then like college and after. And I think it's just kind of funny.
Oh, yeah.
It's kind of funny to see.
Well, it definitely is cool when you, like I said, it's like I love it when I see like pictures of like kids that, like it might be athletes that I trained when they were juniors and seniors in high school. But then I see pictures when they were like 7th and 8th grade, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like not even the same person. So that it's awesome to see that like growth, and see them develop as athletes.
So with I know a lot of the men, but women too. What are some misconceptions maybe that you hear from your clients that come in that you could try to hope change their mind?
Yeah, I think like honestly, I think with my girls, I'll use my athletes for example because that's what I'm always working with. But I think with my girls, the biggest thing is, they think if they're lifting, like they're gonna get bigger. It's like that's the big thing I have to deal with. It's like my boys, it's like, okay, I want to do all the curls, I want to do the bench press, I don't care, just as big as possible. Where the girls, it's like they think the moment they're going to be lifting, like they're going to get like super big thigh muscles, and it's like, because they see these high level athletes, but it's like you don't understand like the years and dedication it took to get there, and I think that kind of just letting them realize like, hey, just because you're getting stronger doesn't mean you're getting bigger or anything like that. And so I think that's one of the biggest misconceptions when it comes to my girls that really stand out with me. And I think another misconception is like that kids that are just how you perform in the weight room is how you perform on the field. Like I have some kids that are when you come in the weight room, it's like there's no way they're a good athlete, but then they get on the field and it's like, what just happened? So I think I get a lot of people that think if you're just a savage in the weight room, you're going to be a savage on the field. It's not not always that case. Sometimes that is true, but I'm trying to make you a better athlete, and it's like, what can we do that's going to help you transfer over to sport? And so it's not always what you do in the gym. It's like you can be great in the gym, but you might not be great in the field. It's like, how can we make the difference so you're great in both the gym and in the field?
So you probably get a lot of information just seeing them play then. Like you said with that one athlete that you were like, oh, you're a little better than I thought. Yeah,
so that is cool when like I see some kids, and, usually you can, usually you see little things here and there, but, it's like I have a couple kids that I always joke to them that they're robots, that they're in the weight room and like I see and feel like they're doing the robot while they're working out. And you go on the field and you're like, wow, you're really fluid when you do everything. It's like he's almost like, like a ballerina being very fluid, and then he's in the weight room, and I'm like, why can't we get this in the weight room? Why can't everything be smooth in here? But it's just, I think how some kids are, and some kids are a lot more cautious than others. Right. And so, maybe they're really comfortable on the field, but they're not as comfortable in the weight room. So
it's probably like an uncharted territory for some.
Yeah, exactly. Like I get kids all the time that are absolutely, just monsters on the field. And, and they might be going in their senior year and they've never even, like touched a weight before, which I think that's a little bit more uncommon now, but you still do see that where kids, have never done anything in the gym or outside of their practices or games, essentially. So
yeah, I can speak to the women part pretty easily. It is true. I learned pretty early on that wasn't the case, luckily. But you're like, I don't want to be big. Like either some of those women, like you said, they're like more high performance. Yeah. Or, you want guys to like you. So you're like, I don't want to be extra big. Yeah. So what can we do to like make it lean?
Yeah. But, and it's crazy. Like for example, I had a college girl and she's like a very fit girl. And she's like, I don't want to, put on any more muscle. And then, like I have one of my high school girls and she's like, I want to put on all the muscle. So it's kind of crazy, and it's also cool to see like the difference in just how some people are and their different goals and that kind of stuff.
Right. So I do want to get into a little more what you do in a little bit, but I kind of want to go nutrition. So that's pretty important to me. I would say more so in the last year.
Okay.
Just trying to treat my own body with food as opposed to like pills or what doctors may prescribe. Because obviously with like I actually follow a plant-based diet, or I'm working towards it, and it's been helping the inflammation like in my back, and in turn it's actually also helped my knees, because I was told like at 19 I had osteoarthritis. I'm like, no 19-year-old wants to hear that. So it's been a big deal for me trying to, I don't know, get around with my kids, really, because I have 3 children. So what, I guess, do you have like a lifestyle that you're following, or is there anything that's really important to you when it comes to nutrition, you personally?
So me personally, honestly, I would say I'm very like unconventional compared to like most people. I feel like most people in my position are very like strict in terms of that. But I think with working with athletes and being performance based, it's always like, okay, I need to fuel my body. So, I need to have quality foods. But like for me, for example, I focus more on like quality foods. So it's like, I want to make sure I'm getting in, my protein, my fruits and vegetables, but I'm not really concerned with how much, or how little. I'm more concerned with like the quality of it. So, and I think that's a struggle with all of us, but, for the most part, me, I usually try to follow, get my, my protein in, and I'm a big, meat eater, for example. So it's like, get my beef, chicken, my eggs, and then get my fruits and vegetables. So, I know as long as I'm getting that, then I'm eating decent. And, I always usually see how I'm feeling. So if I feel like I'm really sluggish, I'm like, okay, well, maybe I need to eat more, or, maybe I do need to eat better. Maybe I need to cut down on, maybe I put some extra sauce on it. It's like, okay, let's cut down that. But for me, I would say I'm very lax in the sense that I don't want to be stressed out with my eating. So I want to have fun and be able to enjoy myself, but it's how can I follow a plan that allows me to do that? So it's like, if I'm going out to a restaurant, it's like, okay, let's get my, lean protein, vegetables, fruit, and not really be too concerned with how much I'm eating in that sense. So as long as I'm getting like whole foods in, that's kind of how I structure my diet.
And I love how you brought up how you feel, because that's what I try to do too. It's like, listen to your body. I'm not counting calories. I'm not doing all these different things that would stress me out as like a working mom. I don't have time for that. So I do try to pay attention. That's what's led me to what I'm doing now. But it's like I said, it's paying attention to what you're eating that works for your body, because it's going to be different for everyone, and like their needs and what they want, and like I said, how they feel in general.
Exactly. And I think that is so important. I think that everyone is like, oh, my friend did this or my friend did that. And it's like, I know guys I went to grad school with that are, in high-level athletes when it comes to strength sports, whether it's like powerlifting or bodybuilding. And it's like, you have this guy that he's an amazing powerlifter, and you have this other guy that's an amazing powerlifter, and they can eat totally different, but they listen to what their, body needs, and like even me and my brother, for example, it's like we come, from the same family, but my brother eats way differently than I eat, so it's like, we know what our body needs. And I think people get too caught up in what other people are doing and realize like, oh, so, for example, like, some people drink a lot of milk and they're like, oh, my stomach hurts. And they're like, well, why do you keep drinking so much milk? And I'm a big milk drinker, and I love milk, but I realize like sometimes like, okay, maybe I've had too much milk and then like my stomach doesn't feel as good. So that's where it's like, I think you need to pay attention to that. And it's like, I'm a big Chipotle guy, and I like something as little as this, like I realized like I felt better eating brown rice than I did white rice. So it's like a little change like that, and it makes a world of difference for a lot of people. And, like something as little as that, it was like I always felt like I was almost nauseous, but then it's like I switched it up and I'm like, I feel great afterwards. So I think little stuff like that if people just paid a little bit more attention, it would go such a long ways in their nutrition and like their life, and like eating stress free. I'm a big, like, I want you to be stress free when you eat. Obviously eating is going to be stressful for almost everyone at some point, but I don't want you to stress over it so much that it's having like a negative effect on you.
Right. And that's what I try to do, because what I'm doing is for my body, so I'm a better mother. But I also, if I'm going to like a party and there's some food I wouldn't necessarily eat, I'm like, if I just have a little bit, I'm not going to stress about it. When I'm just home doing my own thing, I'll worry about it then. But I'm trying not to be hard on myself, because I think I do a much better job sticking with what makes me feel better that way, is not coming down on myself.
Exactly.
So does nutrition play a really big part with like your clients? Do you touch on that? Because I know you're a certified sports nutritionist.
Yeah, so I with working with, my adult clients and then my athletes, I do touch on it, and I think for me, it's more of an education. So it's let's educate my clients, and it's okay. Like with my high school, my middle school kids, it might be something as simple as like, all right, guys, I could tell them to go, like, I want you to go eat, make sure you're getting protein, and I might have a group of 5 kids, 2 of them know what that means, and then the other 3 don't. So it's like,
interesting.
Yeah. So it's like, I'll go up and I'll be like, all right, I want a lean protein source, so then I take I'm in there with my 5 or 6 middle schoolers, and they're listing off like lean protein sources. And, they might list something. It's like, okay, well, yeah, that is, that's good for you to have, but that's more of, in this category, maybe like a healthy fat type of thing. So it's like, it's more of like an education thing. So with my athletes, it's the same thing. It's a behavior thing, because it's like, you're not going to get a high schooler. So it's like, it's like, I want you to eat like I use like, like part of their plate, like, so you're getting half your plate in vegetables, or like, I always forget off the top of my head what it is, but it's like a palm size, portion of protein, and like, I think it's a fistful of protein, then palm size for your carbohydrates.
Okay.
But and like I said, I can't remember what it is off the top of my head, but it's stuff like that. So it's like educating them and not necessarily giving them like, hey, go eat, chicken and brown rice and broccoli.
Right.
Because guess what? None of my, my high school kids or even my adult clients are going to do that. But it's like, let's teach them, hey, it's okay to have this, this, and this, and they can go make a decision. So for me, it's more so educating them as opposed to telling them what to do. And that goes, like I said, from my middle school, college, all the way to my adult clients.
So your middle schoolers, I'm just kind of interested in this with like the youth. Do you see that they kind of take care of that? Like they're like, oh, I didn't really think of it that way, or they're kind of like, yeah.
So I think it's, I think it's interesting with my middle schoolers, because you get some middle schoolers that are like really into it. It's like I'm like, all right, guys, you got homework today, and like, every kid like hates their homework, but it's like, it's like, all right, I want you to, you got to go do 25 push-ups when you go home tonight before you go to bed, and I want you to have like 1 piece of fruit, like, so stuff like that, where it's like I give them challenges, but I also think like one of those things, it's like I got to work with the parents, because it's like, as much as the kids don't know what to eat, a lot of times their parents don't know, so it's like educating. Like I said, I always go back to education, but it's like, I get some middle schoolers that like they get amped up, but it's like I tell them that, but their parents don't know. So it goes like, hey, I tell the kid, and then I'm like, hey, I text the parent, hey, I told them I want to have this, they want to have this after they work out, make sure they're having it. Or if you have any questions, text me, I can help you out, type of thing.
So I was going to ask you, have your parents come back to you and say, thank you, they're actually kind of thinking about eating healthy food?
Yeah. So I actually have a dad. It's awesome. And he comes from a pretty healthy background. He's worked out a lot himself, but it's always funny, with YouTube nowadays, you never know what kind of workout video, nutrition video these middle school, high schoolers are going to come across. And it's like it's almost like once a week, his dad's like, just got him to eat a vegetable today, like, hope he's okay. Or it's like, will you please tell him that donuts are not like good things to have? Like he thinks he gets bigger when he eats donuts. But it's fun when you get parents that are like, always like, thank you, say something to them. Because if you say something to them, they'll listen. But if I say something to them, they won't listen. So
yeah, it's in one ear out the other with, because being a teacher myself, they'll be like, oh, I'm going to tell Mrs. Ginger that. What is she going to say? They're like, no, because I'm not their mom.
Yeah.
And same with my own child who just finished kindergarten. It's like, I could have told him something, he would have not have heard it. But if that came from his teacher, that is like law. Yeah. You do it.
Exactly. So it is fun, and it's interesting. Whereas like with my younger middle schoolers, I'll tell them something, and their parents will be like, did you tell them to do this? And I'm like, no. I didn't tell them to do that. This is what I said. She's like, oh, so it's always, funny to hear the communication, but it is cool to be able to have that influence on like middle schoolers at such an early age, to be like, because I know me, I'm like, if I had a little bit of education and guidance, like that can make a world of difference. But it's cool to see these middle schoolers learning so young, and almost like, I would say, and help educate their parents, because their parents don't know this,
Oh, so that goes a long way. Because everyone wants to do the right thing. You just don't always know what's the right thing, or at least to point them in the right direction.
Exactly.
And I'm sure the kids look up to you.
Exactly. So, so it's, it is cool, like, with the kids looking up to me. And there's times where you know, like when you get a kid, it's like he's got a wrestling meet the next day. And you get a text at 10:30, like, hey, what should I pack in my cooler? You know, that's a pretty good feeling where you're like, okay, I have pretty good influence on these kids. So it's a pretty good feeling when you realize you're like, you know, I do it for a living, but I do it because I love it, type of thing. Right.
And that nutrition is so important. So if the kids are starting to think about it, hopefully as they get older, that'll help start changing the playing field. I mean, literally. Kids actually caring about what's going in their bodies.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I think, you know, and like I said, I know firsthand, like, the older you get, you're like, okay, you know, 21, could have whatever at 8, 23, could still kind of have. And then you're like, now I'm 27, I'm like, okay, I can't be having that, otherwise I'm going to feel awful in the, you know. So, but definitely, like, the higher level you get, the more nutrition, that kind of stuff is going to come into play. Definitely.
Right. I mean, I'm 36, and I'm pretty sure I look at something, it's going to have an effect on me. So it gets even better. But I've been feeling great, just like I said, paying attention to my body. So supplements, for someone like myself, I'm just starting to now think about it. What would be good advice for me?
So I always tell people when it comes to supplements, it's, you know, like there's two different ways, you know, people are like, all right, you got to supplement your diet. And that's what it is. But, you know, like for me, like someone that's performance, I'm like, okay, well, if you can take this supplement and get 1% better at something every single day by taking the supplement, you know, that adds up over time, you know? Right. And so I think that, you know, you can look at that same way with just general health. You're like, if I'm going to feel 1% better every single day, you know, how much more productive or how much more time am I going to have to play with my kids? I think that's super important. But in terms of actual, like, you know, supplements, in terms of like, how do I go about looking to see what I need, you know, that kind of stuff. There's a lot of great resources out there, but, you know, I think when you look at supplements, it's more about doing your research. It's like, you know, there's so many third-party testing websites out there that, you know, you can help look at quality and does it's, you know, like what the supplement says it has in it, is that, you know, is that actually in the supplement or is it not? Or, yeah, it might be in that supplement, but is that really good? You know, and I think there's a lot of resources out there that, you know, if you just look online, there are a lot of stuff out there. You know, but I keep it pretty simple in terms of what I, you know, recommend for most of my clients, you know, and, you know, everyone's gonna, you know, disagree with some of this and, you know, agree with others. But, you know, a big one for me is, you know, like it's usually like vitamin D, fish oil, multivitamin, and protein. You know, I think those are pretty safe across the board. You know, no one's really going to disagree with that. I think everyone can benefit, you know, from those type of supplements. But those are my 4 big recommendations. Magnesium is another good one that I think a lot of people lack that they could benefit, you know, from. And then, you know, I always, you know, with my athletes, I always, you know, recommend like creatine. That's another big one. I think it's a taboo one, you know, and that's one that I get parents that are like, oh my gosh, my kid's taking creatine. And I'm like, oh my gosh, did your kid have a hamburger last night? And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, guess what? They had creatine, you know? Right. So it's stuff like that. And it goes back to education, you know? So the parents like, oh, there's creatine in red meat. There's creatine in fish. Yep. And so that's one of those supplements that I think people are like, oh, supplements can't take in. And I'm like, it sounds like really crazy of me to say this, but I'm like not very controversial at all, but I made a Facebook stats about this one time, and it was, you know, I want you to name a food that can do what creatine does. And it was like, you know, creatine is one of the most studied supplements out there, and it's always, you know, it always increases strength, increases power, you know, helps produce like muscular strength. And, you know, I think like most parents, if they heard that, they're like, wow, you know, like my high school kid or college kid or even my adult clients can do that and take that and be that easy. And it's like, you're right, no food can do that. And not that I'm not like pushing creatine, but I think it's educating where it's like, okay, it's one of the most studied supplements. It's shown to be safe. Why aren't there more people taking it? And it's like, it has other benefits as well. You know, I know there's a study that looked at like heart health, and it showed that it helped in like improve people's heart health and markers of, you know, good cardiovascular health. So, you know, those are my, you know, supplement recommendations. But I think really more than anything on what supplements you should take is doing your research to see, okay, whatever it is, what's the quality of it? Because, I mean, that's one of the things about the supplement industry, and I had a firsthand of doing research, like in the research setting, looking at, does this supplement help this? And I think I found out about that was a lot of these supplements just aren't good enough quality. It says 25 grams of protein, but are those 25 grams of protein that can actually help me build muscle?
Right.
It could be, but it could not be. So I think that's kind of stuff that you have to look into. And like I said, there's plenty of resources that help you do that. But like I said, I think it's just a matter of educating yourself on, what's going to help you and what supplements are going to help you, for your certain goals.
Well, I'm actually pretty excited about this. So you were bringing up quality a lot.
Yeah.
And I think that's so important. So when it comes to Bytable foods, I know you have some information about it. Just tell me, what do you think about it? It's pretty broad, but
I think it's pretty awesome, because I think what it comes down for everyone is people just want to know. It's people want to know where their stuff came from. Where is like I said, is it healthy? Like it's like people say that, and you're like sometimes like, what does that mean? But I think we're starting when it comes to food. It's like we know we want our food to be a certain way now. Like do we want it to be grass-fed beef? And it's like, is it actually what it says it is?
Yes.
And I think that's super important. And I can remember there was a restaurant. I used to live down in Florida, and there's a restaurant down there that it claimed to be like farm to table, and not, I think everyone loved it. It was a great restaurant. And I think it was like something came out and was like lack of the restaurant, like went through a distributor that like literally was like bringing it towards them and connecting with all these farmers. And it was like miscommunication. So it wasn't that the restaurant was actually doing it, but it was like became out to be a huge scam. And it was like, it wasn't, completely the restaurant's fault. It thought it was farm to table, but it was like their middleman, which was, I think it was just like a local guy that was kind of helping them out.
Right.
And I think that was something that I don't know if this restaurant is still a restaurant, but it was like always busy. And I drove by it every day to and from work, and then it wasn't busy. And, it's like, it's one of those things where it's like, if you had the technology to be able to, see this, I think it's something that like, it just helps everyone, because it's like I said, we always want our food to be the simplest, most basic, how it was made, if, it was grown in the ground, we want it to be grown in the ground and, not have it bothered with, it's we want to be like on the Oregon Trail and want to go, pick our own, pick our own food, hunt our own food, that kind of stuff. But you want it to be healthy. And I just think it's something that it's like, when you think about it, it's like so crazy of a technology, and you're like, so you're telling me I can go in there and scan and see everywhere this food's been? I think, I think that's pretty crazy, because, you look at it and it's like, you read it and you're like, okay, that's like a local place, but you're like, even though it's local, it could have gone to 3 different places before it got to this, this food store. So
exactly.
I think it's just a technology that I think it's exciting. I know I told some people about it, and I had some coaches at the gym I were at, and they just absolutely lost their mind. Like, it just made their day. It was like, are you kidding me? And they're ones that are big on, being just everything being, natural, which is, such a broad term, but I think it's such a cool technology that's, and like I said, I'm excited for it.
Right.
So.
Well, most people, I know myself included, people buy based on labels.
Yeah.
Like you want to trust, and I think most people think they're being honest with their labels.
Yeah.
Some may not. But with the technology from Bytable, you actually know where it came from. You can really feel good, because when you're already working so hard to plan healthy meals for yourself or your family, you want it to actually be healthy.
Yeah,
when you're actually going to all that trouble.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's just like it's that education where you go and you're like, it's like I look at some of those, you see it's like organic, and then it's natural, and then it's like, so if you could just see, what the difference in that is. It might say natural, and it might have gone through 20 steps, and then you have like organic or, like cage-free, whatever it is, and it's like, wow, that literally like was at the farmer and then came to the grocery store.
Right.
So I think that, and I think it just will help, people know, and everyone's quick and easy, and with it being a quick and easy technology, I think it's something that a lot of people will, go and start eating healthier because it's like, well, I don't have to stress about it. I can just, go, and I know that's going to be what it says. So, and I think with me, people are less stressed. They're probably going to do it.
Oh yeah. I don't, same for myself. If I know I can go to the store, grab what I need and go home, prepare it real quick. And I know it's safe, especially for my own children.
Yeah.
We're going to eat healthier just with that fact.
Exactly. And I was laughing. I was listening to one of the first podcasts with the founders talking about the recalls, and it really hit home with me. And it's, when I say hit home with me, it's, just kind of laughable. I ate Chipotle 30 days straight 1 month. And I just was thinking, I'm like, Chipotle would be really nice if, right when it happened, I could get lettuce that day. Cause I remember the one day it was like, we're not going to serve you lettuce today because, we think it might be contaminated. But, something so little as that, it's like, well, maybe they could have got that, not ruin my, my one day at Chipotle out of the 30. That would have been very helpful. But it's just like something like that where it's just, it helps the consumer, it helps the company, it helps the restaurant. And I think it is just such a cool technology that in the long term will help so many people.
Right.
With it just being simpler, easier. And like you said, with the previous episode with the recall thing, with it have it being so much quicker and so much easier and being on top of that kind of stuff.
Right. And I hadn't realized how it could really help those other consumers that are going through the 30-day Chipotle challenge.
Yeah.
So, that's
when you're talking about that, you didn't realize how serious those recalls can be, because it can be heartbreaking when you go out there and they're like, do you want lettuce? And I'm like, yeah. And they're like, sorry, we actually can't give you any. So, that's a little heartbreaking.
That's frustrating. That is. Exactly. I can totally see that.
Exactly.
Well, hopefully that's something that can be out there, and even your clients can eating better, changing their nutrition, coming back in here.
Yeah.
I want to hear more about kind of just the lifting side.
The lifting side. Okay. Yeah.
So, I'm in here. It's pretty cool. So I was on your website. You have classes. People can actually come in for a class, but there's also personal training sessions.
Yeah. So we run the gym itself, we run a hybrid method. So we have high intensity group classes, that you can be doing anything. You could be one day you come in and you're just going to run 3 miles, or you come in another day and you're lifting weights, running, biking, rowing, doing burpees. So it's just everything, but it's fun because it's something different every single day. You're never going to come in, it's never going to be the exact same. People are very welcoming. And so we have that side of it, but then we also have our personal training side of it. So we have a lot of our coaches are personal training, and then we have clients that are doing just personal training, just classes, or we have a mix where they might do training 3 days a week, class 2 days a week. And then we have obviously our athlete academy where we're bringing in, athletes of every level to come and work out.
Okay. So that's interesting. Because when I came in here, I'm so far from this level, or so would I think, but if I was to go to my doctor or physical therapist, they gave me the okay, is there stuff for people who maybe have not been working out here?
Yeah,
or not?
No, absolutely. So I think with, every trainer coach is, you bring your client in and you want them to tell you. I think that's what a lot of people don't understand. When I get a client here, I want them to tell me about everything they've been doing, hey, I just got the okay from my doctor to, continue doing exercise. So then one of our coaches, trainers, is going to be like, hey, maybe class option isn't right for you. So we we take you through an assessment. We're like, hey, I think with, say, 8 weeks of, doing some personal training, we can kind of guide you into doing class 2 or 3 days a week. So I think it's more so, absolutely, if you've never, if you haven't been doing anything for years because of an injury, or you've never, never done it, never worked out in your life. I have a client now, he's probably mid-50s and in phenomenal shape, in terms of you just look at him, he eats so good, and he came to me and he's like, hey, I eat fantastic, but he's like, I have literally never worked out in my entire life, ever. He was a good golfer growing up, but he's so it's for him, he's 50, mid-50s, and he's never touched weight in his life.
Right.
So, we have people like that have never done anything, or maybe just coming back from injury. And I think it's more so just getting to know that client, assessing them, where are they weak, where are their strengths, and putting together a program for them.
And I think that's so important because I think everyone is going to appreciate the fact of you being honest with them.
Yeah.
Okay, this is your level. Don't jump into this
Yeah.
because that's going to hurt you. Like, we need to do something different.
Exactly. And you want to make everyone comfortable because it's like, it's scary. It's scary for a lot of people to come in here, and I think a lot of people, take it for granted that it's like not scary for them. You know what I mean? And it's like you even get like people that have worked out in the past before and have been, big and strong, but it's like getting back into it. That's a scary fact. And I think it's a good way to ease people into it so they can, they don't sign up for their 8 weeks and like, see you later. It's like, all right, let's step by step get you. And we're not going to baby them, but we also want them to get results, but also enjoy the process of it.
Absolutely. So is there a great way they can like track their progress here, or do you have them do it outside of this?
So there's a lot of different ways to track progress. And I mean, we, like, for example, I track a lot of my athletes' progress. So I do it all for them, and I do that with a lot of my clients. So, like, if we have, clients with athletes or my adult clients, I personally do it. I know a lot of the coaches do that. And, there's various apps for that kind of thing. But I think also a lot of the clients take it upon themselves. They whip out their iPhone, they got their notes, and they're like, I hit this for this workout today, And I think it's just technology makes it so easy where even if you don't have an actual program to track it, you can still do it. But, I think that's one thing that keeps people coming back is like setting performance goals.
Right.
So it's like not like with all my clients, it's like, yeah, our weight loss may be the main goal that we want, but it's like you might not lose any weight the first month. So it's like, well, let's do something that we'll, test it out the first month and then train. And then at the end of the month, we can test it out again because it's like, you might not have lost any weight, but you might have put on some muscle,
right?
So it's like, what can you do to keep people amped up? And I think performance goals, and it's not like, oh, I want to back squat 500 pounds, but it's like, get this workout done in this time, or I want to be able to run a mile without walking type of thing.
Right.
And I think setting performance goals can be so much more encouraging in the long term as opposed to setting this number on the scale, that can fluctuate based on so many various reasons.
Right.
So I think it's important to set essentially like performance goals as opposed to, numbers in terms of like the scale. I think that's important in, the short term to help them continue on in the long term.
Well, I just think it's so important how big you are in education, the education part, because eventually they are going to leave here at some point, and you want them to still be successful as they
absolutely
go on. So do you, I assume you would, like mobility and flexibility, is that something you work with on your clients as well?
So it's actually kind of like a running joke because I'm like the most inflexible person of all time. And so like, I think people come into the gym that don't ever see me work out and they're like, do you work out? Because all I'm ever doing is stretching. Like, and it's like, I've come to the point where it's like, how much is too much stretching, you know? So I think that goes along with like the assessment, So I'm always testing my athletes to see, where we can fit mobility in their program. So I think that comes along with assessing the athletes. It's like, you got to assess each individual athlete, and not all athletes are going to be the same. So usually I try to work that into my warm up or my cool down, or I might work it into the actual workout. But it's just everyone, that's something that, working out in general is individualized, but I think mobility, flexibility definitely needs to be personalized. Because I use an example, I have two brothers. One is the most, he's probably one of my most inflexible athletes, phenomenal athlete, but super immobile. And so we're always stretching him. Then I have his little brother, don't let him stretch at all. Like, he does this completely separate warm up than the other 6 or 7 kids because he just is too flexible, and you can be too flexible. So it's like, I'm like, I don't want you to be any more flexible. I want your muscle to be a little bit more stiffer, a little bit more powerful, because he's so flexible. And it's like, I just didn't know it was possible for a boy to be that flexible. Right. But it's just like, so it's individualized to everyone. And it's something, I think it's an essential part of the program, but it's got to be individualized or, at least touch enough areas that each person can get a benefit from it.
So that's news to me. I don't think I realized you could be too flexible, but I'm at that stage where I'm like not flexible enough. So that's probably where my mind is right now when I think about it.
So it's like you can be, you don't want to be too inflexible because you'll have an injury, but if you're so flexible that, that's another cause of injury. So it's like, where's the happy medium in between that flexibility and mobility?
Right. So I'm kind of switching subjects here just a little bit. You were talking earlier about like the youth athletes you have in here. And I know that sports in general, even since I was young, which it's probably a lot longer ago than I actually realized. Sports have changed like substantially.
Oh yeah.
So have you been getting more traffic in here with the youth?
So it's crazy. So, it's exactly like you said. Sports are completely different. Even like when I was younger, and it wasn't even that many years ago. It's like, like everyone used to play Little League baseball, and it's that really is like not very many kids do that. It's all travel baseball. So it's different, but I always like come back to, it's like you want to look at the long-term development of an athlete.
Right.
So, I definitely get more traffic, and it's like, it blows my mind when I get parents that are like, I got a third or fourth grader, like, what can you do for them? And I'm like, nothing, but they can go play another sport,
right.
And it's like, so it's that kind of stuff. And it, like I said, it goes back to, it's all about educating yourself, educating others, but it's like, parents are gonna be like, so you're going to tell me that my son going and play basketball is going to make them better at baseball? Yeah, it is. And like they just don't understand it. It's like, well, do you jump at all in baseball? No, you jump in basketball though, and that helps you produce power, more home runs, faster pitching. So it's stuff like that that's like helping educate parents. But I do get a lot busier, and I think every year it gets like, my kid's in 4th grade, 3rd grade, 2nd grade, and it's like, you just want to tell parents, and it's, I think a lot of coaches in my position are like, I want your kid to go play catch out in the yard. I want him to go play in the jungle gym, or do that kind of stuff. But it definitely is changed where it's everyone's specialized, and, everyone wants to be the best at this, and this, but it's like, you want to look at long term. It's like, no one cares what you are when you're in middle school. They remember when you're in high school, college, if you make it to the pros, that type of stuff. So it's like a constant battle of, let's look at the long term.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm big on kids being kids.
Yeah,
like, that's just my opinion. I'm like, they grow up too fast. Let's just not. And like, I was an athlete in high school. I played basketball with your sister.
Yep.
And after basketball, which our coach worked us, I would go right into softball season, and I'd be sore.
Yeah.
And that's a different muscle group. It's like softball doesn't seem quite as intense, which it's not. But I was sore after a softball practice when I just came out of basketball season.
Yeah.
So it's a big deal.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like you said, you hit the nail on the head there with kids being kids. It's like, like I am always like, all my kids, it's like, I have all these baseball players. I'm like, when's the last time you played wiffle ball? And they're like, I don't know. And I'm like,
what's wiffle ball?
I'm like, as an adult, I'm like, I want to go play wiffle ball. Like, you have the entire summer, like, go play wiffle ball, you know? But it's like, I think it's just becoming more specialized, and everyone wants to be the best, which is awesome, and I get it. And it's like, well, let's get your kid to be like long-term. We want to look at the long-term athlete, long-term development. Let kids be kids, let them go have fun. And I can promise you, if your kid's having fun, being active, he's going to be a better athlete.
Right.
Like, this is 1 hour a day, maybe 2 or 3 days a week. It's what you do the other time while you're outside the gym. Like, that's just as important, if not more important, than what you're doing in here. Right.
Oh, I agree. And I would even say focus on like the education of the healthy habits and having fun with what you're doing and just being engaged.
Exactly. And that's exactly it. It's like, it's like, and you have to like educate people on that. It's like hard for me because I want all my kids to succeed, but it's like, is playing on, like 4 baseball, that's an exaggeration, but playing on 3 baseball teams at once, is that the best for your kid who's an 8th grader, or does he need an extra day off or something, or is he going to get burned out of baseball? So I think it's one of those things it's just helping educate the parents that it's like, it's going to be okay. He doesn't necessarily need to do that. What about doing this instead? Or it's like I had a mom, I thought it was awesome. She has a daughter, amazing travel softball player. She made him go play in like the local, Little League softball. And she's like, she was having fun again. She's like, she went from not having fun to having fun again. And she's like, because there was no pressure on her to do good, nothing. It was like, go out there, have fun. The coaches are glad she's there. The other players are glad she's there. Her mom as a parent is glad that she's having fun again. So I think it goes back to exactly what you said, like kids being kids.
Right. So your advice, for parents, because we all want what's best for our kids. Sometimes we might forget maybe what is best or lose sight of that. But what would you say from like the nutrition or sports aspect?
I think we kind of talked about it. It's like, look at the long term. it's the long term. If your kid, if your kid can't do a push-up and he's going into high school, that's probably an issue. Like
right.
I'm sure, like I remember, back when we were in, grade school, it's like most kids could probably do a push-up, could do an air squat. And it's like, I got kids that can't do an air squat without like falling on their face, or, they can't do a single push-up, or they can't hang from a bar. And it's like, that's an issue. You know, like you shouldn't be going and throwing, 100 pounds on the bar, but you can't even do a push-up.
Right.
So I think for my advice for parents is really just look at the long term. It's yes, everyone wants to be a great athlete at all times, but look at like a lot of the great athletes, it's like they probably didn't peak until they were, in high school, college, because that's when it's more important. It's like I said, it's, no one, everyone remembers that middle school athlete that was phenomenal and actually crushed everyone, but there's a lot of times where they ended up not growing or not doing anything, and it's because they didn't, they were so focused on one specific sport, and they, it's like they might have been better off doing another sport, but they were so focused on that sport that they got caught up, and everyone caught up to them. And it's like, look at the long term. It's like, find a coach that cares about your kid and just ask them. It's like I think most coaches, do it for the right reasons. So they're going to be like, hey, this is what your kid needs. I know might be out of this world, but maybe you just have your kid not play baseball in the fall, or not play soccer and let them just play it in the spring.
Right.
So I think it's just, like look at the long-term development, not so much what you want, but like, what is best in the long term for your kids.
Actually for your child.
Yeah, exactly.
I think that's great advice for all parents out there listening.
Yeah.
So thanks. So I'm going to wrap up a little bit. So I am kind of curious, because weightlifting is a big thing for you. Let's say you're busy or you're on vacation. Is there something you do not skip? Like it could be, I don't know if it's a lift or it's just getting out there and running. I don't know.
So, I mean, I used to be, I kind of spin a different way.
Okay.
I used to freak out if I didn't do something.
Okay.
Like, I used to be the person that was like, oh my gosh, I didn't get a workout in, my life's over.
Right.
But as I've like started to like pay attention to, my body and stuff, it's like, if I don't get this in, then it's going to be okay.
Right.
So I have that where I don't stress as much about that. So that's kind of like something similar. I'm like, if I do miss it, I'm okay with it. But, I would say I don't ever skip a meal. Like I'm always hungry. No. I think drinking water is such a big thing. And that's something that it's something that a lot of people forget. I even forget, but I was like, holy cow, I didn't get water in. So I'm just like chugging it all day. So I think that's the one thing that I think I don't even know if it's something I never forget to do, but it's like always stay hydrated. You'll be, less hungry. You'll probably have more energy.
Right.
But that's probably the one thing that I would say, I used to never miss a workout, but you work sometimes and you get tired from being in the gym all day. But no, I think it's more so is, I'm always drinking. I'm always staying hydrated. That would more so be like the one thing I would say that.
So you surprised me a little bit, but I agree with you on the water, because I learned my lesson a hard way a few days ago, and I woke up the next day just very lethargic, and I thought about it. I'm like, I hardly drink any water, because like, there's other things you can drink if you want to, but that water is really important. So aside from Chipotle, what's like your favorite healthier type meal or go-to? And I know you mentioned kind of like your protein, like your meats, you definitely like to get in.
Yeah. So if it's like, my ultimate, I'm fortunate that like, I'm not someone that like craves, like pizza or anything like ice cream or whatever. I mean, I do have those cravings, but at any point in time, like steak and like anything is okay with me. So I can have like steak and potatoes, or like, I'm coming up on vegetables. Like I'm still a little, like I make sure I get them in. But honestly, I'm big on smoothies lately, because like I'm not big on vegetables. So I become super big on smoothies, where I'm like trying to fit as much spinach and kale in as I can. And then like some bananas or, something to drown out the flavor of the vegetables. So lately it's been, I will never pass down steak. I'm big on eggs too. But I've been big on, smoothies lately, because I know how important vegetables are. And I got to, practice what I preach, from my high school kids, when I'm like, you need to be getting your vegetables in. And I'm like, I haven't had vegetables in a few days. So now smoothies are my one thing where I just try and pack as much, vegetables in as I can to get my daily requirements and hit my, micronutrients and that kind of thing.
Oh, I love smoothies. I'm trying to get my little ones into smoothies for that reason. So I want them to see the vegetables, but maybe not taste them because they're working. I mean, I love vegetables, but I love smoothies myself. So how can clients find you? Because I was in here earlier and there was some pretty intense, make it after in here.
So there's a couple different ways to find me. You can find me on Facebook at Quad City Athlete Academy. That's my Facebook page for my business. I also have my personal Facebook, Chase Hollmer. But then I have my Instagram, which is Hollmer Time, which is my last name, Hollmer, and then time. So that's my Instagram. And then my Twitter is QC Athlete. You'll probably be like, well, I said to follow me on Instagram. I get heat all the time about not posting on Instagram when I'm like, I need to post today. And then it just completely forget about it. I get in the zone coaching, completely forget about it. But yeah, Instagram's a good way to hit me up. Facebook, either of those.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for taking time out of your day today. It was really fun being down here.
Absolutely. I had a blast.
Thanks.
Thank you.